Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Gibaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, oh, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jai Prabhupada. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahams Brivra Jakacharya Sat His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavandi Ki, Srila Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki, Premsko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki. All glories of some devotees, all glories of some devotees, all glories of some devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 21, Text 20. Naita Badisha Padam Tave Pishitam Yan Maya Ya Naschanushe Bhuta Shukshmam Anugrahaya Savapi Yari Mayaya Lasa Tulasya Bhagavan Vilakshita Naita Batisha Padam Tavi Pistam Yan Mayaya Naschunushe Bhuta Shukshmam Anugrayasava Piyari Mayaya Lasa Tulasya Bhagavan Vilakshita Naita Badisha Padam Tave Pistam Yan Mayaya Naschunushe Bhuta Shukshmam Anugrahya Piyari Mayaya Lasa Tulasya Bhagavan Vilakshita. Others? Vaishnavis? Word for word. Na, not, itat, this, bata, indeed, adhisha, O Lord, padam, material world, tava, your, ipsitam, desire, yat, which, mayaya, by your external energy, na, for us, tanushe, you manifest, bhuta shukshmam, the elements gross and subtle, anugrahaya, for bestowing mercy, astu, let it be, api, also, yarhi, when, mayaya, through your causeless mercy, lasat, splendid, tulasya, with wealth of tulasi leaves, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vilakshita, is perceived. Translation. My dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with a splendid wreath of tulasi leaves. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is clearly stated here that the material world is not created by the personal will of the Supreme Lord. It is created by His external energy because the living entities want to enjoy it. The material world is not created for those who do not want to enjoy sense gratification, who constantly remain in transcendental loving service, and who are eternally Krishna conscious. For them, the spiritual world is eternally existing, and they enjoy there. Elsewhere, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that for those who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this material world is useless because this material world is full of danger at every step. It is not meant for the devotees, but for living entities who want to lord it over the material nature at their own risk. Krishna is so kind that he allows the sense-enjoying living entities a separate world created by him to enjoy as they like, yet at the same time he appears in his personal form. The Lord unwillingly creates this material world, but he descends in his personal form, or sends one of his reliable sons, or a servant, or a reliable author like Vyasadeva to give instruction. He himself also instructs in the speeches of Bhagavad Gita. This propaganda work goes on side by side with the creation to convince the misguided living entities who are rotting in this material world to come back to him and surrender unto him. Therefore, the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita is this: give up all manufactured engagements in the material world and just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Om Gyan Timirandasya Ginanjana Shlakaya Chaksu Namilitam Netasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Chapitam Mirabudle Svayam Buddhamayam Daranti Svabdantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shutapatakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagratam Sarvagnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Prijan Sitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padaha Sagalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bando Jagapate Gopisha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Nopsate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhavanavanishri Rishabhana Sutadevi Hari Pranami Hari Pre Vancha Kalpatri Vischa Kripa Sindhabi Vacha Pita Nam Pavni Vyo Vaishnavo Nama Namaha. So before I start, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to come to Srimad Bhagavatam class, for giving this opportunity to serve. And I want to especially thank Kirtan Prabhu for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak on this very high topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so thank you very much for this. And also, it's wonderful here in New Dwarka that practically things haven't changed in the sense that to the level of excellence that the temple and the devotees maintain here, as far as prasadam distribution, the gift shop, book distribution. It's steadily been like this for many years. And it's the beacon in North America for the world in ISKCON to show the example of what a temple should be and what Prabhupada wanted. So thank you for giving this opportunity to be here and to try to be of some type of service. So we see here in the introduction that I wanted to talk about is that the conditioned souls desire to be in this material world, the Lord's mercy, and the Lord comes himself, or he sends the pure devotee, or he sends his servant, what's called as the Shaktivesh avatar, divinely empowered. So we understand that there are the question may arise is, why is it that the conditioned soul continues trying to desire in this material world? Why is the living entity trying to desire in this material world? That even, say, the non-devotee, or the so-called non-devotee, the conditioned soul, he may be in this material world, and we meet a lot of people like this on the street and from day to day, that we meet all kinds of people that they find some flickering satisfaction, some type of enjoyment in this world, but they're suffering at the same time. But they keep going back, trying to enjoy this material world. But anyone that is honest with themselves, even if they're not on the path of bhakti, can understand that this is a place of suffering. That everyone is experiencing suffering at every moment, right? And as there's a very famous country western song, I think it was in the 80s, it says, looking for love in all the wrong places. So this is the state of the conditioned soul. Everyone's looking for love, looking to be loved and to love. But where is this love to be found? They're trying to find it in all the material satisfactions, trying to enjoy the senses to the full capacity. And at least it's stated within America, right? The American dream is to become very rich and prosperous, to be a very important person, to be very powerful. This is the motto. Like, they don't generally say this, but this is the idea, right? It's not, as they say sometimes in LA, it's not who you are, it's what you drive, right? So sometimes a person is judged by the particular car that he drives or how he looks in a particular sense. And that we understand that this is all a false illusion. I think it was Jim Carrey, he's a very famous comedian. Many of you don't probably know who that is. But he's a very famous, rich comedian, and he once said that, I hope that everyone reaches the level of success that I've reached. And he's a millionaire. He's millions of dollars, very famous person, very sound. He says, I hope everyone reaches a level of material success that I've reached, and they'll understand this is not what they want. That we actually understand that there are so many successful people in the material world, and they try to squeeze as much satisfaction out of this material world, but yet they're still frustrated. They keep hitting a wall. So this is the state of the conditioned soul. They know inherently that no matter how much suffering, and particularly if they've been around for a long time, I think the idea is when you're younger, you're under this particular illusion that particularly in America, in North America, that my success will come from my degree that I get at the university, or the particular job that I get at this IT firm, that then I'll find real success. But the idea is that it's always the concept of the idea that the grass is always greener on the other side. I'll be happy if I have $1 million. I'll be happy if I have $2 million. I'll be happy if I have 10 million. And it goes on and on and on. And even when people reach a particular level of success, of millions and millions, they want billions, right? And then there's a competition between billionaires, right? Who can outdo each person. So the idea is that no matter how much material success that a person has, that they always want more and more. And this is the nature of material desires. If we continually trying to enjoy this material world, we're just going to hit a dead end. We're going to hit a wall. And kind of like when someone's driving and they just hit the wall and they smash and everything goes to pieces. That's the nature of this material world. That as much as we try to enjoy from this material world, the more frustration we will have. So here, Srila Prabhupada's telling us that real satisfaction comes from understanding the self, or what's called Atmaram, self-satisfaction, that we find real happiness by understanding our spiritual nature, which is Satchidananda Vigraha. That by nature, we're blissful. So why aren't we blissful all the time? Because constantly we're trying to enjoy outside of Krishna. And that's what's very interesting about Krishna, is that Krishna gives us the free will to choose, right? But we oftentimes misuse that free will. But to understand any kind of relationship that we have with anybody, there must be free will, right? I can't come to Advaita and say, Acharya. So I can't say to Acharya, you must be my friend. I'm going to hold a gun to your head, and you will like me, and he'll respect me, and I'll say so many things, and he'll say whatever I want to hear, but it won't be sincere. So similar in the same way, love can only happen when there's two living entities that choose to have that particular relationship. So when we want to actually surrender to Krishna and please Krishna, simply just to please Krishna, not for any type of trying to get anything from him, then he's actually very satisfied by that. And it really doesn't matter what we're doing. It's not really what we're doing, it's the consciousness behind it. It's the intent. Sometimes intent is everything, right? That if my intent is just to please Krishna, then that's as satisfaction to Krishna. And we can see how Krishna is satisfied by the level of satisfaction that we feel in our hearts. So it doesn't really matter whether one's distributing books, or whether one's cooking, or whether one's cleaning. This is irrelevant. That the real thing is that what is in my heart, right? My heart is actually to please Krishna. And to whatever my capacity, whatever I can actually do, then that's what I should do. And ultimately we have our authorities, we have the spiritual master, we have Srila Prabhupada, and there's quite clear instructions on how to please Krishna. There's also, we understand the levels of trying to satisfy anybody, but particularly Krishna, that he gives certain rules or regulations to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And sometimes the living entity, the Jivatma, can try to please Krishna, because he just wants to please Krishna, but not knowing exactly how to please Krishna. That's also good too. But if we really love someone, we try to figure out what they really like. Not necessarily what we want to give them, but what they really want. But still, the intent, even if someone indirectly is performing some particular service, they make some particular advancement. And that's why it's so beneficial for so many of us to engage in devotional service, whatever it may be. But when we really want to get down to the science of Krishna consciousness, we try to understand exactly what Krishna wants, right? So there's a wide spectrum of how we can please and satisfy Krishna. And that we just have to choose that within that spectrum to try to please Krishna. But when we become more professional and more expert, we really understand what pleases Krishna by reading books like Nectar of Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. All these books are for us. And oftentimes I sometimes would hear this idea, oftentimes people would say to people that are Prabhupada disciples, oh, you're so fortunate, you got to see Srila Prabhupada, you got his personal presence, and you got his association, which is quite wonderful in and of itself. But the real aspect of the association with spiritual master is by hearing the instructions of the spiritual master. And we can see, right, there's so many devotees that got very kind of minimal personal association with Prabhupada, but over the years continually are engaging what Srila Prabhupada wanted. So this is the real association, and we can get that direct association by continuing reading Srila Prabhupada's books, right? By chanting the Maha Mantra, by coming to the morning program, by engaging in devotional service, by doing whatever level that we could do, engaging our hearts in the process of bhakti. And we engage in this process of bhakti, and all perfection is there. So we have to understand this process of engaging in Krishna consciousness. And we have everything that's already there. We just have to engage ourselves. And so I guess the other idea is that why is this idea of free will, right? Everyone is thinking that they have free will in a particular sense. And Krishna does give us free will to a certain extent. But there's this idea, even in philosophical circles, that does free will actually exist? Because when we think of free will, we think I'm making choices based on what I want to do, right? But because we may come from a certain country, we may come from a certain family, we're raised with particular values, certain experiences, and with these things, it's like kind of a conditioned experience that we have. So we're raised to a certain, when we're children, we're raised at a certain time to believe in certain things that may not necessarily be false or not necessarily be true. But we have this tendency, but the idea is that persons are thinking that I have this free will, but actually it's just an amalgamation of all kinds of experiences and certain conditions of how we've been raised. So really we're just kind of, the conditioned soul in particular is kind of acting on those personal experiences of how he's been raised. Like there's this idea that, but they use this particular political phrase is "Make America Great," right? That's one of the particular themes that we find in politics. And it's a particular type of nationalism that someone may have, that, America is the greatest place. We love America. Anyone criticizes America, they're un-American. That particular idea. And that's a particular nationality, it's a nationalistic type of idea, right? And it's kind of something that people have been raised with to believe in those particular things. But if you go to another country, right? If you go to Argentina, or if you go to Mexico, they may say, yes, no, our country is the best, and everyone else is secondary. Everyone is particularly saying that. So if everyone's saying that, who's actually right? Because it's all coming from a conditional response, right? Like, I think there was a time in the 40s or 50s where segregation was a big thing. Like, there were definitely places that blacks and whites could go to, and only whites could go to and blacks couldn't go to. And everyone thought that was perfectly fine. No one really kind of questioned it. But after a period of time, people started questioning, well, no, there's something quite wrong with this. And because they thought about it in a logical sense, because in one sense they were just kind of following imperfect ideas of what they thought society should be. So this is all kind of examples of conditioned life. We find this in the material world. Everyone's conditioned to a certain extent. And it also comes into play within the modes of material energy, right? Of goodness, passion, ignorance. And according to those modes, people pick up a particular type of consciousness, right? So the idea is that Krishna gives us the free will, right, to choose him or not. When we choose not to choose him, we fall into the modes of material nature, right? We may develop modes of goodness, and we develop modes of passion, of ignorance. And the idea is that once we choose one of those particular modes, we're kind of stuck in that mode, right? Like, say, someone in the mode of ignorance, right? He has that free will to choose to do what he wants with his life. So he's thinking, I really want to enjoy life. So I think enjoying life is by doing drugs. So I'm going to do some heroin, right? So he does some heroin. He's enjoying for a long time, for some so-called period of time. But then over a period of time, it controls his life. And he has actually no control over it. And he's actually suffering more and more and more. And people always wonder, like, someone that's a heroin addict or a drug addict, they're just actually destroying their life, and it destroys their family members and everybody around them. And they do all kinds of nefarious types of activities. They may steal, they may rob, they may do all these particular activities to support that particular habit, and they're suffering. But yet, in one sense, they have no choice because if they've given up that free will, and that particular mode has taken them over. It's also an extreme sense that it's given them a physical dependency on something that they can't just quit. But they had the free will, but yet once they chose that, they started to disintegrate and destroy their lives. So somebody in the mode of passion, I remember this particularly when I had the great opportunity to distribute books at the airport. And oftentimes, I think it was like, and it was interesting too, because when I was flying in to the airport, I was at the airport, and I was looking around all the places I used to distribute books at, like on the top of Terminal 1, I was thinking, wow, this is like totally different than what it was like. It's totally different, but I can remember particular things because how the escalator goes down and how we approach people as they're going down. And I remember particularly on the lower level, what stuck in my mind a lot was Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, because he would come here and he was just so, he wear a suit and he was so animated. And him and Brigopati had this competition, and he would just do like huge. But he was like so animated how he would approach so many particular people there. So, but in particular, I remember a lot of the business type people that would come down, and you would try to approach them, and they would just like, they saw you coming like a mile away, and they would just like, get out of my way, beggar or something like that. They, call, insult you in a particular way. But you could understand that even a person that's in a mode of passion, they're trying to achieve something, and they can achieve big things, like business people or CEOs. They definitely have some particular shakti or intelligence to achieve great, magnificent things, but they're kind of controlled by that in a sense, right? And then we understand someone in the mode of goodness, right? Someone that's trying to, promote nonviolence, compassion. Stays very clean, he's regulated in his action, helps others without expecting anything in return. And so we can see these particular modes can dictate someone's particular nature once they choose that. But what's also wonderful about the mode of goodness is that this is prescribed for the conditioned souls, from many of us, especially me, coming from ignorance and passion, to develop these modes of goodness, right? And we develop these modes of goodness is understood as a springboard to transcendence, right? Into the ocean of devotion, right? So as we engage in this Krishna consciousness, that we have to take to the process, and we can purify our consciousness and make great advancement. And we understand that, as is stated here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Krishna comes himself to remind people of the irreligion and the degraded times, or he sends a servant. And we see this as Srila Prabhupada has come to save us. And Prabhupada's still here, and he's still here in his books. So we continue to read his books, associate with Prabhupada, and follow his instructions. All perfection is there. This ain't, as they say, It's very complex philosophy, but in one sense, this ain't rocket science. All we have to do is follow the instructions of the previous acharyas, of our superiors, the spiritual master, and all perfection is there. If whatever everyone's doing right now in their Krishna consciousness, they just continually do that, they can actually go back home, back to Godhead. And so this is the beauty that Srila Prabhupada has given us, that even though Srimad Bhagavatam is complex philosophically in many ways, it's very simple because we can take to this process, make great advancement, and help others achieve the same. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time to listen to what I have to say, and thank you for letting me ramble on, and I appreciate your time. And if you have any concerns, criticisms, now is your time. Okay? Anybody? All right. Srimad Bhagavatam class ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.